All right, I'm with Tom Woolrych, who is a geologist who is from Australia, but he lives in Deutschland right now. Tom, how are you this morning or this afternoon?
Good. Yeah, morning for you, afternoon for me. Wonderful, beautiful sunny day here in Berlin.
That's great. So we don't know each other aside from on X or me seeing you on videos or maybe you seeing me on videos. So obviously we have some background on who we are, but we've never actually spoken. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the mining industry, then how you got on the investment side.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And nice to meet. I'm sure it'll be fun to meet in real life or sort of off camera one day, given our, shared backgrounds. So yeah, I'm a geologist, 43. Went to uni in Australia at the ANU. I've worked for majors and juniors, and then what was your question? How I got into it? I was as a young bloke, I was into rock climbing a lot, and I wanted to travel, and I wanted to see the world. I got really good grades at school in geography. There was no there was a few geology units which I loved, but there's no geology major. There's geology as part of science, but no geology major, and I got ducks of the class for geography. I thought, well, how can I travel? How can I, do more geography, study science, and then I landed on geology. But my cohort was fucking tiny. I want to say 6 kids. This was 2000. This was 2000. We graduated in 2004. I did an honours year, 12 months. Wrote a thesis. So that's how I got into it. And the advice back in the early thousands was don't do geology. Gold price was $200. Nickel price was in the bin. Copper price was rubbish. No one wanted metals. No one wanted gold. And then China woke up in 2005, and us graduates, we were flying around the world business class. I think my first job, I was getting paid 80 grand. It was a lot of money back then, straight out of uni for, a junior geologist. So, we thought.
Was that in Australian dollars or
Australian
in American
dollars?
Okay, Australian dollars.
Aussie,
but that was back when the Aussie was close to parity.
That's right. It was good money. Yeah. We have been, the Aussie has been at parity. 60 cents is about normal. So that was exciting times, and then I learned a lot. I'm a child of the bull market, the last bull market, and then the trade since 2012 has just been fucking terrible. So that's my background.
Okay, well, it's interesting because we have some similarities. So I'm not a geo. I don't have a technical scientific background, but I've been in this industry in one way, shape, or form for 22 years. So I've learned quite a bit along the way. But yeah, I'm also a child of a bull market. So we're about the same age then, because I got into it in the early 2000s as well. And had that incredible run from 2002 to 2007, and then lived through the financial crisis, and obviously everything since then. And I remember the market. I mean, just think back 20 years ago, Tom, how the junior mining sector has changed from an investment standpoint, from like an information sharing standpoint. In 2005. It was very hard to get information. It was slow to come about. People weren't making videos. I don't think even people had any podcasts back then. There wasn't even audio really that was being done. So it's totally changed. So the investor today is way more empowered than they were doing back during that bull run from 2002 to 2007. And I guess that has its pros and cons. The pros are there's so much at our fingertips. The cons are that there's so much at our fingertips. It's a fire hose, and what do you pay attention to? So, I want to ask you some questions, and then we'll get into some companies. But let's start with the big picture stuff and sort of what you pay attention to. So what gets you excited about a new discovery or about a company? Like, what are some of the top 2 or 3 things that you look for?
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of go through my process. I'll see a headline and I'll go, oh, okay, that looks good. 100 gram meters or 100% meters, being 100 meters at 1 gram or 10 at 10 or whatever it might be. Copper and gold we're talking about here. And lithium, it's 30 to 50 meters at 1.3% lithium, LiO2. So I need to see something like that just to grab my attention. Yeah, then I'll dig down into I'll start reading, and I'll be, okay, are these guys sharing data? Are they doing maps and sections? I actually don't really. I probably read the dot points at the front, but don't really read the information that's typed up until I'm really willing to invest the time. Then I might start with the CEO's comments and then try and work out if I want to spend more time on it. So, I mean, if people aren't sharing sections and previous drilling, I'm immediately very skeptical. 9 times out of the 10, these are historical hits that people are twinning or infilling, and I could just sort of close it. The Homer Simpson meme, back into the hedge and forget that I ever saw the company, right? So for me, I want to see a new hit, 100 gram meters or 100% meters, in exciting rocks. There's been, Ramp was one recently. I didn't understand the geology, so I needed to do more work, met management. I think they don't really know yet themselves, so that remains to be seen. So that's difficult for me to invest in the company without understanding the geology. Geologists call it the exploration model or the deposit model, right? To be too model focused is not always good, because you can miss new paradigms. If you say, well, I'm a porphyry guy, I only invest in porphyries, then you miss out on discoveries in new search spaces. So yeah, that's kind of a long way of saying I need to see that tier 1 potential in the headline for me to dig in further. And that's the main thing. And then once they start to get 4 or 5 drill holes, I'll stick it in Leapfrog. You've probably seen some of the stuff that I've shared, in the public sphere. Stick it in Leapfrog, see if the geometry and the scale is going to be something that I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's interesting. Picked up on a couple of things you said there. So when they're not showing you the older holes that previous operators have drilled, that's a red flag, because it's showing you that they're not being transparent. And also with no section maps. I could think of a couple companies recently who published good drill results with no section maps, and they basically excused it with, we're still working on the section maps. We need a better person for graphics or whatever, which is not a great excuse for a serious company, yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're being fraudulent.
That's true, but it shows they're unserious.
Right.
I mean, okay, we're getting into the weeds here. I'm a bit wary to talk about it, but the perfect recent example is San Lorenzo Gold at SLG. I've been talking to Luke and Harv about it recently. They're remarkable drill intercepts. I did my process and I'm like, okay, well, this is snagged me. Luke likes it, so I need to look at it. It's getting a bit of noise on Twitter. I met management, and it's exactly like you said. It's a couple of old dudes. They're running on the smell of an oily rag. They get $1 million, they spend $1 million. That's how they operate, right? And then they've stumbled across these remarkable hits. It's a wonderful story, but it's super difficult to invest in them because they're just kind of not set up that seriously. And if I want to put $1 million into it, I want to be able to see a return on that million. And this is kind of a different thing the sort of retail against the fund mindset, you know, I'd probably risk 10 grand of my own money in San Lorenzo Gold, but as a, you know, thinking as an institution, you know, you just can't invest in them. They're not professional enough.
Yeah, San Lorenzo is a good example. Great hits in Chile, right belt of rocks, right neighborhood, good location. It checks a lot of boxes, but you're right. I mean, look, sorry, Al, if you're watching, but I don't think he'd be offended that it needs a new CEO to take the helm, and you know
he basically said that.
Yeah,
And his geo, is it Terry?
Terry, yeah.
Yeah, he's remarkable. You know, he's a guy who's been plugging away on these projects for however long, 30 years, right? Now he's putting out these wonderful hits. It's a great story, but the guy's basically deaf as well, so it's impossible to communicate with him. So that's another thing. You've got to be able to communicate with management. Yeah. So I'd love to see a big discovery made by those guys.
Yeah, I mean, the Cerro Blanco target looks pretty good, but yeah, it's early days and they don't really understand it, so they need.
That's right. Well, I think the geo does.
Oh, really? You think he does?
Yeah, the old bloke. The first hits are sort of the hits are all quite deep, but I can even show you. I did pull it up in Leapfrog. It's very rough because it's early days, but the hits are the 1,200 or 1,500 meters apart, and it's got 3 all grade hits on massive spacing. So yeah, it's an anomaly. You don't see it very often.
Yeah, their hit rate is extraordinary for doing so little work. I mean, they did a small survey with IP. They've done small drill programs over the last 6 years, but not really anything that would be considered to be a serious, drill program. And I think it's at the stage where, yeah, I know, but it's at the stage where the company should just raise $5 million and do a real drill program. I
think you were listening in on my call. I said that to the guy, and he's like, "Oh, it's is that coming up? It's
yeah,
that would be too dilutive." And he didn't like it. So yeah, from that hit there to that hit there, it's 1,200 meters, and they've got one in between. And good hits, 60 at 1, followed by 40 at 1.4, followed by 47 at 1.3. I don't know why I haven't got the composited hit, but the whole thing's above greater than 1 gram starting at 229 meters. Same thing here. So Cerro Blanco, we'll see. There's only a 2.2 kilometer section of the license, 2 kilometer section of the license. So that's an issue, but we'll see. And then they've got 2 drill holes coming out here on Arco to Oro. So certainly a remarkable target in itself. Already drilled 32 meters at 1.6. So yeah, I digress. That was one I looked at recently. Don't own it, but certainly on the radar.
Yeah, that's interesting about the property boundary, and then it looks like there's like a river up there to the north of Cerro Blanco.
Let me show you the terrain. It's remarkable. Part of the reason why the company hasn't been able to operate here, this is like a dirty great gorge. I can get you an elevation. What is an elevation? I can't get you an elevation, but it's something like 400 meters. Okay, here it is, 1471, and the drill collar is at 1884. So 400 meters elevation change. Over just a few kilometers, over a kilometer.
Yeah, that's pretty steep. That's steep topography.
Yeah,
Reminds me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it reminds me
They
of Idaho.
okay. Yeah. I mean, that's uh, where mountains are where good deposits are. You know, it's orogenesis. So yeah, these are some of the challenges we face. And these guys, they actually had a better drill pad in here, right near the sea, but they couldn't access it because of the terrain. They need to bash a road in with a D9 or something with a big dozer. And then you kind of mentioned about the geology. There are these white structures running basically northeast or north south, and then this big patch of white. I guess that's why they call it Cerro Blanco. So yeah, San Lorenzo Gold, not one, not one we said we might cover, but interesting one anyway.
Yeah, it's different. It's different. It's different because they have a high hit rate. It's different because of the awkward management structure of the company, the unusual structure. And it seems like these guys have the best interests of shareholders at heart, although this is clearly not what their primary role is. Not to be management of a junior mining company, right? That's not what they're really typically focused on, it seems. Although Al definitely has background in management of venture stage companies, but he doesn't seem like he's a typical CEO.
No, I would have said bloke in his 40s who's, someone like yourself, someone who's been in the capital markets for a while, someone who understands how to raise money, how to talk to investors, all that sort of stuff. And just with the energy levels to be able to deliver discovery.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. So what is the most tired pitch or one-liner you hear from junior mining CEOs? What's a pitch that just needs to be retired from the industry?
Yeah, I mean, every CEO you meet is different. They all have different angles. They all have different incentive structures. So let me just go back to the one that I already mentioned. Is rehashing last cycle's discoveries, right? So you see this a lot in Canada. Oh, I've got this gold project in Quebec or Ontario in the greenstone, and with these 2 meter wide gold veins. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, you're gonna have to drill hundreds of thousands of meters to prove up 1 million ounces. It's probably going to be deep. You're probably gonna miss the current gold cycle, although Trump's doing his best to puke the market today. As we talk, there's super volatility. The VIX is over 20. So yeah, that's a long way of saying we're probably in the wrong part of the cycle for sub-million ounce gold in Pilbara, Yilgarn, Quebec, Ontario. And then I see them every day. It's like, here's this one, with these historical hits. Let's try and squeeze the last bit of juice out of this gold market. So I'm sick of placements, and I'm sick of like tier 3 gold projects. Yeah, that might just be, some of these things might make money. There's been wonderful successes, particularly in Australia, with sub 2 million ounce projects getting $1 billion market caps. They're near infrastructure, they're near mills. The next mid-tier and major companies are being built right now in Western Australia.
So you mentioned sub-million ounce, and I think scale is something a lot of investors don't really understand. They don't understand the non-technical side of the business. It's not too uncommon to see a company with like 500,000 ounces of like some high average grade, I don't know, like 8 grams per ton gold, but only 500,000 ounces in resource, And this is a project that's been recycled, like you said, like for 20 years, for 30 years. It was maybe drilled in the 80s or whatever, and then it's just been passed around from public company to Shell to public company. And so what can you pass along about the scale that an ore body needs to have to be economic, to really move the needle? Because like 8 grams is great. Like obviously that's a great average grade, but if you don't have a lot of it, then is it really worth anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah, as you're talking, I thought I'd pull up my Bankan model. So Bankan's a project in Guinea, in West Africa. It's on the ASX, so I know you probably don't have a deep understanding of it. It's very similar geology, very similar scale of discovery to Oko West, Reunion Gold's famous discovery. So, but yeah, I thought you Canucks might enjoy to hear a bit about Bankan. So, your question was why? If I understood it, why concentrate on scale? Why does sub-million ounce projects not make any sense? Yeah, I mean, it's a simple answer to that.
Well, yeah, like why is it not interesting to you?
Yeah.
And why are there so many of these, deposits that are laying around and not getting advanced, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, geologists are bulls by nature, right? So they get you get 100 gram meter hit, and you're going to try as hard as hell to find the next Oko West or Bankan, right? So you're going to keep on drilling. We saw that at what's the newfound gold project called? Queensway. So they just kept on throwing meters at it, and the market kept on supporting them. But the geology just didn't support the market cap. The funny broker that I talk to occasionally, he says, "Oh no, newfound gold. Those results are just backfilling the valuation, right?" This is when they were at 1.6 billion. So it's trading at 400 million now today. So a big fall from grace. But what the projects? Why does scale matter? And why does geometry matter? Why does continuity matter? So you want to be able to mine a serious mine, a mine that someone will think about buying. You want to be able to mine 200,000 ounces per year. 100's okay. So what does that mean? That means you can get 100,000. A million ounces means you can get 100,000 ounces a year for 10 years. Yeah, even that's a bit small, right? Mining is a capital intense business. To set these things up costs from two or 300 million to over $1 billion. Big porphyries cost $4, $5, $6, $7 billion to set up. So that's high capital intensity. So you need to be able to have a long life project to be able to invest that $300 million. Gold projects, particularly at this gold price, the payback period can be 6 months, right? So the smaller ones can make sense, particularly if they're near good infrastructure, near a mill. If you don't have to build your own mill, maybe you can get someone to toll treat it for you, some major on your doorstep. So these rare situations where sub 2 million ounces, sub million ounces can make sense, but they're super difficult. And then you need an A-class management team. You need guys that aren't going to dilute too much. They're going to work hard. They're going to basically kill themselves to get the project into production, and that's super rare. So, yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think just to simplify it, I think you explained it well when you said, I think 100,000 ounces a year for a minimum of 10 years is the starting point. That's the minimum bar for something to be economic. If you cannot reach that bar with some margin of safety, then what's the point, right? So the mineable ounces is also not the same as the total ounces. So to have
That's
a
right.
million mineable ounces, you might need 1.5 million total ounces. You might need 1.6 million total ounces. So
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And like the real so I guess that means the bar really is 1.5 million ounces to 2 million. And to have 1.5 million work, you got to have grade. All right, it's probably not going to work at a gram, right?
I mean, there are large deposits, with hundreds of millions of tons at a gram. And they do work, and engineers quite like them because they can just feed 0.5 gram to 1 gram dirt through their mill. They like homogeneous ore feed, right? They don't want to see these nuggets going into the plant because they can't recover them. They end up just getting spit out in the tail. So I think, if an engineer was saying, he said, just give me the same dirt. If it's 0.5 gram or a gram or whatever, it's something I get 90% recovery on, and feed it through the plant for 15 years. That bloke's happy, right? So the grade is king in gold, but total ounces is pretty important too. So, I mean, in the example of Bankan, which I'm sharing, this is end to end, from kind of end to end, 600 meters. And then if you look at it in section, it's a finger of God. There's a hit all the way down there. That's let's call it 1.3 kilometers deep.
Wow.
Now this deepest hit is 131 gram meters, 24 meters at 5.5 grams. So that's underground mineable, starting from 850 meters. So predictive, this will probably get mined by Perseus, unless someone can pip them. They'll be able to mine here. This is probably, I actually don't even know the number, but it's over 5 million ounces, and they can mine here for 20 years, right? So happy days, and that's why these sorts of projects attract billion-dollar valuations. So, but for me as an investor, I could invest in that shitco and probably make a few bags in a gold bull market, but these things are also super liquid. So how do I get my money out of it, out again, when the market turns, as it inevitably does? Rather, I put a tweet out about the monster that sleeps, the geo alpha monster. So geo alpha is something that I've been developing and discussing publicly. It's about how do I have market-beating gains, and that's by investing in the best geology. And one of my dreams is to have only 3 to 5 discovery stage investments in the portfolio per year. And the market analysis shows that there are 3 to 5, tier 2 or tier 1 discoveries every year. So you just have to be disciplined. You have to be patient, and then do the work, and then invest in good geology.
Good geology. Okay, let's talk about Hercules Metals, because this is something that we share in common. I've seen you discuss it a couple times, once on that Australian podcast, and it was quite good. I enjoyed hearing you discuss it. It's probably one of my largest holdings, and something that I've been very focused on since they announced that first intercept 2305 in October 2023. So I just want to pick your brain here, and I know a lot of Hercules shareholders are going to watch this. So I'm just interested to start it off with, where do you think this porphyry center is? If you had to guess at this point in time, where would you guess it's located on this property?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting academic question. But you know, Chris is going to do a far better job finding it than me. He's lived and breathed it for what, 3 years now. So that's a lame out. It's an easy out. Just saying, trust in Chris. So he's a super geologist. If you're going to criticize Chris that he's too much a geologist, he's not enough sort of a markets guy, right? He said that on Antonio's podcast himself. So I won't be offending him by saying it. I'd love to see him, have a huge budget and not have to talk to fund managers and investors just out there doing geology. But he is the CEO, and he has to sort of sit in the hot seat. I think they understand the geology better every year. Chris says 24 was a hard year for them, and it was. You could see it in the share price. I wasn't in that first early run up. What got me interested was like hole 8 or something when the big sell-off happened. The reason I was interested was like, okay, the market was expecting 0.8 to 1%, but I saw huge, thick intercepts of 0.5%. So that confirmed for me that it was a porphyry system, right? So everyone's busy selling the stock, taking profits, expecting higher grades. But I was like, fuck, that's a big step out. Dude's like really rolling the dice, doing 400-meter step outs, and he's still hitting 0.5%. So yeah, respect. I started building my model and slowly buying on market. I've not had an opportunity to participate in a raise because he took so much money smartly. He took so much money as the stock was running up, and he got the investment from Barrick. So yeah, I've had to battle it out on market. We're probably neutral. I haven't checked today. Trump made the stock suffer. So where is it? Where's it going to be? It's difficult as they go up the hill. The postulated, the hypothesized porphyry, as shown here, it's actually a scalp. It's actually a scalp section. They're putting it way down here, right? Where they've had all the drill success. There's probably multiple intrusives. That's another lame answer. So there's going to be apophyses, fingers of porphyry cutting up into these into the volcanic, the older volcanic sequence, and cross-cutting these limestone beds. This is the cap, and you see this quite over a large part of the license. It's either tuff, the volcanic ash, or basalt cap. So that's why this belt has remained undiscovered. Actually, the secret sauce is that it's been up until now too difficult to explore here. So they've needed to use geophysics. They've needed to take big swings with drilling deep. But I'll rehash for your listeners that the project was it was a silver project. They were drilling a bunch of silver in this younger cap. You can see it in these drill sections. These are the silver intersects. Quite remarkable silver hit, thick 100 meters at 193 grams silver. It's a silver project on its own. At $30 silver. So, but then discussions that I believe Chris had with Quinton Henning were like, okay, this thing has a porphyritic signature. We need to drill through the cover, the cap, and find out what's happening with the porphyry. And that really opened up the district. Scout got their properties. You've got Barrick moving in. You've got Rio moving in. You've got a new vend called IDX. I think I have a map with all these. So yeah, Idaho, remarkable new. It goes back to one of your original questions. there's all the tenure. A remarkable new belt, super exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is really interesting. And I think, some people say, like, Robert, why do you care about this so much? Like, it's just another junior mining company. I'm the guy who talks about you don't fall in love with these things. And it's true, you don't. Maybe I fell in love a little bit with, Hercules and this porphyry belt, just because it was so new, so interesting, and so different. Like, how could there be an undiscovered porphyry belt in the western part of the US, this area that was trampled over for 50, 60 years by all the old, artisanal miners in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like all the way up to World War I, and not find this? Well, because they just didn't have great tools. They couldn't go deep, and actually they were here at Belmont, at various parts of this property in the 1880s and 1890s, but they only scratched the surface because they could only go so deep. And actually, I've been to the property a couple times, and there's still some old adits. They're very covered up now. I wouldn't advise going into any of them, but they tried to get deeper, but they could only go, so far. And then, we could go through the whole history of the last 100 years. But basically, there was a bit of a renaissance in the 70s and early 80s in Idaho, but that fizzled out when gold and silver went back into a bear market in the mid to late 80s. And then Bill Clinton just killed mining in the US in the 90s. And it's taken this long to come back here with modern tools like deep IP and all the different ways that we can see deeper into the earth now in 2025. So it makes it very interesting, because this is like a new discovery that's 150 years in the making.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. And then, I mean, I guess to fill in the more recent history, what's become is interesting now is that, okay, Chris and the team had the mining license. What do they actually call it? Surface mining rights in the black box. But they've done now all the work with the regulators, who are showing increasingly more support for the project, including them giving them a big tranche of ground not shown on this map. Some of the newer maps on their prezos show it. They got a bunch of ground here now as well, so the turquoise is bigger. But this eastern block area, there's already a identified skarn there. It's called Big Cut or something. Yeah, Big Cut, with wonderful trenching. I think even some shallow drilling. So skarn potential. If there's skarns, there might be high sulfidation epithermals. There might be more porphyritic apophyses. And then, scout, these things belong together. The geology doesn't see tenement boundaries. I think the sum is greater than its parts, right? I understand why people would want to keep them separate to try and maximize value for each vendor and each group of shareholders. But together, this thing, is even more attractive. And then you touched on a little bit about the history of mining in the US. So I believe, there hasn't been a lot of evidence of it yet, but I believe it's going to be, a bit more of of support from US authorities. You've seen that already in the share prices of projects stuck in permitting hell. They've all tripled. So, that should help. That should help good old Hercules battling it away and trying to make a discovery.
Absolutely, yeah. Let me ask you another question about the project. So the area to the north, there's a prominent silver anomaly, copper anomaly, moly anomaly at Greig Creek. And Hercules hasn't drilled at Greig Creek yet. They've come close. They came last year. They drilled a hole 12 close, but it wasn't actually all the way up at Greig Creek. And they drilled a hole 15 sort of off to the east, but they didn't actually get into the, you know, into the mag anomaly and into this Molly anomaly, really.
Yep.
So it's interesting to me because I look at this and I see the property map, and I know there's a lot of faulting. There's been a lot of movement over time. And I see that really rich soil anomaly in the east. And then I see the big soil anomaly up at Greig Creek. And then I look at some of the IP stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if the porphyry's in the middle there somewhere. And some of this just got shifted around. That really, the soil anomalies were once all part of the same thing.
Yeah. So a bunch of stuff. Chris will explain this better than I, but the it's all porphyry, right? So porphyry is a big fuck off system. They can have, you know, tens of kilometers type footprints. Yeah. So it's all one system. Now there's extreme topography in Idaho, a bit like our good friends at SLG. So Greig Creek, you know, really cuts away. You can see it here in my 3D topography. The elevation there is 1,600 meters, and then down in the creek it's 1,300. So it's a 300 meter elevation change. You know, these holes are drilling down, hitting mineralization at whatever 150 meters. So that's why you're seeing really strong anomalies in Greig Creek. The copper is bleeding out, and the creek is cutting down through that tuff, and you're starting to get a picture. You're starting to get a peek into the porphyry rocks. So yeah, I want to see Greig Creek drilled as well. Now there's another sort of puzzle that they're feeding out, that they're teasing out. It's finding the early biotite altered zones, right? So this what Chris is telling us when he says in the logging that he's found early biotite is that he's getting close to the potassic zone. So these potassic rocks are high temperature. They have potassium feldspar. K is potassium on the periodic table. They have biotite alteration. So once he starts seeing these sort of these minerals in the rock, these alteration minerals, he starts to get excited. And then obviously you'll start to see pyrite, chalcopyrite, other copper sulfides. And then he gets super excited, and then the assays come back and they're greater than 0.5%. So it's a huge system. It's a huge belt. There's going to be multiple fingers, hypotheses of this key phase that we're looking for. And that's going to, even within that phase, it's going to have different alteration zonation based on how, you know, its distance from the heat source. So yeah, early biotite in the porphyry rocks, massive scale potential, billions of ton potential. I mean, one thing you can, if you're losing sleep over your big investment, there's a lot of copper already there in this Supergene blanket. So if you imagine this, the
Supergene. You said Supergene. There's some controversy on whether it's Supergene.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Supergene. I haven't seen the core. I'm going to go to site. Chris has invited me. I just need to get my ass on a plane. It's so fucking far. But I'm pretty sure what happened was, you see where they call this an unconformity. That means that's the old land surface. So the porphyry was at one point exposed, and it was oxidizing and creating a chalcocite blanket. Yeah. So the red is this blanket, and then the lower grade, my 0.3 cutoff stuff, is here in orange. That's the hypogene creating a chalcocite blanket. Yeah. So the red is this blanket, and then the lower grade, my 0.3 cutoff stuff, is here in orange. That's the hypogene. That's the porphyry there. It's just it's a bloody ocean of 0.3. And then you're going in and out of different temperatures, different alteration types. That's why you're getting that 0.5% stuff in the porphyry. It is when you get the early biotite. So look, the story makes sense now. If I go and see the core, and I'm not seeing chalcocite and stuff like that, then supergene minerals, then I'll be convinced otherwise. But
the thing is that most of the copper in that enrichment blanket, they call it, is actually bornite. So it's not chalcocite. Yeah. So
that's a hypogene mineral. So yeah. So there's something weird. This would be incredibly unusual to create a flat pancake of bornite. Yeah. So this is going to be master's studies and PhD studies in the future to work it out. Yeah. So.
But your point is well taken, that there's a lot of copper right there in that enrichment blanket, and then you've got that silver in the cover, the volcanic ash, as you call it, above it. Yeah. You put it all together, there's a lot of ore metals there.
There's a lot of metal. And then Vukasin hangs shit on me for liking this project so much, because he's like, how the fuck are you going to mine that, right? It's kind of awkward, but I just think there's so many tons there that they'll find a way. Is it going to be a block cave? Is it going to be a big pre-strip? You mine the silver, pay for that strip to strip the torf. This is all problems for 10 years down the track, right? So the focus for now is drill. Keep on doing these 200, 400 meter step outs. One of the biggest shareholders, Willem Middelkoop, we've had this discussion, and he's certainly going to be supportive of Chris. Just what do you call it? Give Chris the tools that he needs to keep on doing what he's doing. They've got a new drill contractor this year. Canadians, I believe. They've had to sack the Americans. But I mean, that's no big surprise. They don't have the level of experience that Canadians are going to have. So 25's looking up, if the market support that.
Completely agree. So to be continued on Hercules Metals. So let's talk about American Eagle Gold. So we go up to BC, the Babine region of BC, another porphyry project, but this is an atypical one. we're still figuring things out in Idaho too, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around NAC and what exactly is going on here, because again, we haven't really found a porphyry center. We've got a porphyry system that seems pretty complex.
Yeah. So I've had a really fun, healthy back and forth with the team at NAC, Tony, Charlie, and Neil. So what can happen if I don't buy the stock, or if I say something negative about a stock, is that people get offended and they start calling me nasty names, and it's just no fun. But in Tony's case, he's listened to what I've said publicly about too much infill drilling, too much maybe chasing some the drilling that we had 2 years ago kind of told us what we need to know about the western part of NAC, and I couldn't see any point in keep on drilling it. Now, Tony, to his credit, he did keep on drilling those same areas, and he raised $30 million, and the project's still going. You know, he's reduced his cost of capital by ignoring my criticism and just doing his thing, bringing in majors to support the project. So massive credit to him. It's a capital market success. We'll see. Remains to be seen if it's going to be a geological success. You know, I wish Tony was running, you know, some company, you know, like San Lorenzo Gold or something. He'd have that thing.
Like San Lorenzo Gold,
with a 500 million market cap, wouldn't he? So, I've said that to him in the past, and he said, I can't remember the exact comment, but he's very fast. He's very intelligent. He said, don't worry, I am running a company that you will own, right? So he's determined to get my investment. I sat next to him in Zurich a couple of weeks ago, last week. Had a wonderful time with him. Well supported by Stephen and the All Group, you know, who you know, just good quality people interested in investing in quality projects. And because of this positive relationship, I'm comfortable talking about NAC, right? So you are. I don't know if I've shown this model publicly in the past. You said rightly, it you know, it does look like a porphyry system. Charlie, who's heading up the technical, and Neil, but it's, I think, the brainchild of this whole project. It comes from Charlie, who has, you know, wonderful runs on the board. You know, he says it's a porphyry. And he keeps on supporting the drilling. Allan Wilson, a world-class porphyry geologist, has been on site here recently as well. I think Tony, he'd either just been on site with Allan, or he was leaving Zurich to go to site and see him. So what have we got so far? The Babine stock is an intrusive body that's cooked up, you know, a bunch of sediments, essentially conglomerate, siltstone, sandstones, and conglomerates on its margins. So, you know, so that you can imagine the sediments are sitting there and the Babine stocks pushed up into it. And you could, the way I, you know, rightly or wrongly, my mental model of it is that it's a contact skarn, right? So everywhere you've got, you know, the intrusive body contacting the sediments, you get you know, things cooked up. So why keep on drilling here? Well, hole 33, one of the later holes, 50 meters at 0.7. It's okay, you know, there's smoke there. 88 meters at 0.7. So there are little high-grade zones, but then you get long hits, 600 meters at 0.2, a vertical hole 5, 800 meters at 0.14. Now, some Canadians get excited by 0.1, 0.2, but that's kind of like throwing shade a little bit on BC. These things quite often are difficult just because it's, you know, they're pretty low grade. 0.3 in BC, because you got the infrastructure, you're close to Vancouver. You know, you got good people there to run the mines for you. You can kind of make money a bit above 0.3, right? So all the projects end up being difficult. The people that end up owning them probably regret it. So yeah, BC is normally a red flag for me as well. I have a bias against it.
Yeah, so there's a stereotype that BC porphyries are low grade. That's not always true. There's there's Red Chris. There's a few other ones, but like, for example, Highland Valley and Copper Mountain are more of that 0.2 to 0.3 that you were talking about. And I guess Highland Valley, once Teck had built all the infrastructure and got deeper into the porphyry and away from any supergene layers, they're still mining 0.2% copper head grades and still making money, but they have obviously a huge amount of sunk costs, and they have a very efficient operation at this point. But rightly said, if the average grade of the ore body is 0.2, it's probably not going to be a mine, right? Unless copper is $20 a pound, right? So what do you think the grade has to be at NAC? Like obviously, if they drill some more 1% hits, like I think hole 17 from 2023, they had a couple of nice hits last year too. I think hole 31 had over 200 meters of 1% copper equivalent. What do you need to see to be like, okay, Tony, I'm buying the stock?
It's gonna be long intercepts of 0.5. So a bit like we saw at in Idaho. So they still haven't got, if kind of like you said, if they've got that honeypot, I think they actually called a jewel box or the honeypot or something. Then that was their hope for the northern end. After they saw bornite, disseminated bornite in a highly altered rock. If you do have that honeypot to pay for your initial capex, then the 0.3 stuff does make sense, right? So yeah, you're gonna need that company making hole. Let's call it 300 meters at 0.5, and then they're off and running, right? The red crisp is alkalic, so it's a really high potassium type of porphyry system. So those things can help if you have these unusual chemistries. The type locality is in New South Wales, in my old home, at Cadia Ridgeway. So these alkalic porphyries can be helpful for the grade, and they do occur in BC. So yeah, let's see if they could do it. I mean, they haven't actually hit a porphyritic intercept yet either, right? So if they hit something within the Babine stock that's 200 or 300 meters at 0.5%, then I'm like the meme, sitting forward, taking attention.
So based upon what you see in their presentation and on Leapfrog and what you've heard Charlie and Neil discuss, I mean, they have this concept, blue sky donut, right? And I mean, like Tony admits, it's a marketing phrase, but basically it's showing the ring around the Babine porphyry stock. A large amount of that has not been touched by a drill. So do they just need to step out 500 meters at a time around that whole donut area and just grab their balls and say, okay, we're going to swing for the fences, huge step outs. Obviously you can't expect to hit on every hole or even close to every hole, but maybe they tag in to something that's of that 300 plus meters of 0.5.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of my early criticisms, is that they just kept on drilling. You don't drill out a porphyry on 50 meter step outs. So once you've done 100 meter step out on 17, there was no need to do an infill hole. And that 100 meter step out dusted. There was no need to do another hole close to 17, unless you're trying to raise money, right? But now that I know Tony well, I can see that it wasn't a very cynical thing. They were trying to make a discovery, and they were trying to not blow their hard-earned capital. What was his comment? We think we have a tiger by the tail, so that that they were going to be systematic. That's fine. So now they've got a bunch of cash. They can kind of afford to do these 2 400 meter step outs and test the donut. So go for it. There's another, we'll see if it comes to fruition, but there's another piece of funny banter I've got going with Tony, that he's on the rig that's doing the step outs. I think they've got to have a rig still poking around on the western side. On the big step outs, he's going to put a photo of my face on the rig. So let's see if he does it. It'll be very funny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So it's time to be aggressive in 2025. It's time to do some big step outs, 200, 300, meter step outs, and really test this thing. And also it's kind of interesting that you say they don't have a porphyritic drill intercept. Like it looks to me like a porphyry system, but it is very atypical. So you're calling it a contact skarn, which actually I guess maybe that zone, that western zone they've been drilling, it's a contact skarn.
Yeah, I have to be a bit careful. I haven't seen the core. I have spoken to Charlie and Neil. So I saw some core at PDAC. So I saw I think it is called the jewel box, the beautiful bornite disseminated in the porphyritic rock. So what it looks like, my issue, you remember S32 made the investment and they had some data release on visuals and they put these photos out. And some cheeky MFs said, yeah, you see, Tom, you know, S32 is smarter than you. And they've got these beautiful disseminated bornite in the rock. And so, well, S32 make investments on different timescales than you and I. They're interested in putting their boot on this thing so that they can spend $2 billion in 10 years' time and develop the thing. So I hold very little credence on the timing of the S32 investment. And for them, whatever it was, it 20 million, whatever the investment was, you know, is a rounding error. So yeah, the S32 thing didn't get me that bullish. And I'm looking at the photos, and there's no quartz veining. And so some of the some of the things that porphyry geologists look at is multiple cross-cutting phases of veining and of alteration. So you want to have multiple pulses, porphyritic pulses coming in and smashing the rocks up, altering the rocks, delivering sulfur and metal into these porphyries. So I didn't see that in the core photo. So I wasn't actually that surprised when the hits came out at 0.3. Is it what sort of a porphyry is? It's kind of academic. Just give us a 200 or 300 meter hit at 0.5 and then work it out in 10 years time what it is. You know, there'll be a bunch of master students and PhDs busy working it out.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's no like clear vector. I mean, obviously it seems to make sense to step north where they have picked up on more copper enrichment, but also the area to the south, they're calling it, you know, the Embayment Zone, where there's copper oxides at surface, a lot of malachite, chalcopyrite at surface. You know, that area looks interesting. But yeah, it's time to test this full donut and really go for the blue sky. Okay.
There was some good smoke. There's some good smoke in I think it was this hole. I don't think I've asked this for hole 9. Neil calls it the tech hole because I haven't I got any assays there. Neil calls it the tech hole because I think part of the deal for the tech investment was that they did a big step out like that, and the tech hole had some smoke in it, right? So I'm like, oh well, that's interesting. You know, it's not all grade. It's not, you can't raise money on it, but the fact that you got smoke in hole 9 is pretty interesting.
Yeah, they took a stab into that embayment zone. It was like I think that hole was like a 600 meter step out or something. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't a duster.
Yeah. And then that was one of the first things I saw in the project. There's people, people were banging the table. A wonderful man called Nat, or is it Nate or Nat? But yeah, Nate.
Nate.
Nate was DMing me saying, "Tom, you got to look at this." So, they sucked me in. They sucked me into their American Eagle. The gravity.
All right, let's stay in BC. Let's move to Kingfisher. So this is interesting because this is one that has a little bit of market buzz right here in April 2025. The CEO is Dustin, and he has been doing some marketing, some presentations at conferences, and he's created a bit of a buzz. But like American Eagle has been pretty aggressive with drilling in 23 and 24. A lot of meters. Kingfisher, not so much. In fact, I don't think they drilled last year. So this is a one where they're going to have a bigger drill program in 2025, but it's we're sort of betting on the come here with Kingfisher because we only have work from the past operator to go on, right, from 2017 to 2019.
No, exactly. I'm struggling here. There's multiple Williams projects. Just bear with me.
Oh yeah, it's complicated. Yeah, there's a few Williams projects.
I pulled up the wrong Williams.
Yeah, there's one in the Tutagun.
Yeah, Amiga Pacific or something.
Yeah, Tutagun. Yeah.
What was Kingfisher's ticker? KFR.
KFR. Yeah.
Oh, I really want to show this. I can't work out where I put it.
Williams Project. Hank
and Williams. Yeah, that's the one. That's a shame. Let me do it old school. I've got their deck here. Yeah, that's the one. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Oops. So, what do I like about it? Well, I like Dustin. What a legend. I met him in Zurich as well. Met him briefly at PDAC. It was like, I was coming down the escalator and he was going up. And he's like, "Hey, Tom." Okay. "Oh, well, okay, we got to meet in real life. Okay, see you in Zurich." That's quite the way with PDAC, isn't it? It's like you can't get anything done actually when you're in Toronto. You're better off meeting people online or at smaller conferences. So I met him in Zurich. He's an awesome dude. He's been putting this thing together over years. Had cancer twice or some insane story. Got his entire net worth in it. And then Zach Flood and Francis McDonald, particularly Francis, I'm close to because he's Europe based. So I spend a lot of time with Francis. There's good old Charlie again. We're going to be talking about him a lot. Just an ace team, right? Bunch of legends. I believe I've never met Tyler, but Dustin speaks very highly of him. Awesome part of the world to be in. There's Red Chris that we already covered. And then if you look at the tenure, unbelievable. Newmont, Skeena, and who's the other techs in there as well somewhere. So they're just surrounded by majors. Now, I think for me, again, look at the work that Dustin does. It's remarkable at the way he puts together all these maps. He's told me these take a lot of work, and when people steal them and put them on their decks, he gets annoyed, right? So please credit him if you're going to be doing that. GT, something that Charlie's been involved in the past. Again, another tick for the old fella. So here's where it gets interesting. Hank's kind of drilled. I'm not that excited by Hank. I wish I had my leapfrog model. I could demonstrate why. It's kind of known, right? It's a bit like we were saying at the start of our chat. If some busted old Vancouver dude came pushing Hank on me, I'd be a bit disappointed. Needs more work. Doesn't mean it's not useful sort of satellite tonnage, but yeah, it seems like hard work. Now Williams has a group of holes in it. Awesome geochemistry done, awesome mapping. Okay, so here's the drilling. You can see quite a lot of holes in Hank, and not so many in Williams. Now I'm going to get to the map that I want to talk about. It's this one. So the IP, there's a lot going on this map. Dustin is a geo, so he's trying to let a picture tell 1,000 words. In the background here, you can see IP lines. They're running northeast. Now you can kind of see this IP anomaly. This has been reprocessed since it was taken. It's kind of been stretched out in the northeast. Now Dustin wants to know if he runs his IP in the perpendicular orientation, he's going to be able to vector in on and work out what's happening with the geometry, the sort of 3D geometry of that IP anomaly. And his thesis is that drilling there on the western side it was ineffective. I mean, what's ineffective? Some of the hits were pretty damn good, particularly for BC, right? Help me out here. So Williams, confusingly, the collars are called HNK, 347 at 0.3 gold and 0.3 copper. That's a remarkable hit. Yeah, what's interesting about Kingfisher is Williams, right? So they've already got hits 347 meters at 0.3 gold and 0.3 copper. That's a remarkable hit. The previous operators poked in around that and admittedly didn't make a discovery yet, but hopefully I portrayed that before what got dropped. The reinterpretation of the IP and the fact that he's caught that the IP lines might be suboptimally laid out. Geophysics is a dark art, so your IP signature can look different if you move the grid around 90 degrees. So they'll understand once they do that work. They'll understand more about the drill target at Williams, particularly at depth. But a wonderful start already. And what got me interested is that Dustin's willing to, he's generated this interesting thesis. It's not just infill drilling. He's going to do big step outs and test the entirety of the Williams system. It'd be very easy for him to twin a hole and get, a 0.3 long intercept at 0.3, but I'm pretty sure he won't. Yeah, that's Kingfisher. I mean, you kind of pointed out that it's had a bit of a run. I guess it's worth 30 million now. Great support from all the inciting investing and Crescat and people like that. So kind of, do I want to buy it today? But based on that it's high risk exploration, probably not. I do have a little personal PA position, and I'm sure Dustin won't mind. He's saying the cash position. They did a small raise at 16 cents, I guess, in January. And the what do you call it? The wording from Dustin is that they're going to need to raise again prior to drilling. So there'll be another opportunity for the fund to invest in Kingfisher at that point. So great story, great geology, great team. Kingfisher is doing real work.
So it's interesting because let's look at Hercules, American Eagle and Kingfisher, and let's talk about it from a market standpoint. So it's April. Kingfisher probably drilling in June, I would guess, because it's the Golden Triangle. I think American Eagle probably end of May. They're a little further south in the Babine. And Hercules starting this month, I think in the next few weeks in Idaho. Now, Kingfisher has traded up in recent weeks and months. And as you said, about a 30 million valuation on the venture in Canada. I think American Eagle has been in a range, but that's after getting cut in half following the results of those northern holes that got the market excited and proved to be a little disappointing. And then with Hercules, I think it's also just been sort of trading in a range, but now with this tariff stuff, it's sort of at the low end of the range again. So as far as investing or trading at the start of a drill program, are there any thoughts that you have on like when to buy a junior explorer at the start of the drill program or after the drill program has started, or is there something else?
Yeah, so I think about these things a little bit differently. An entry for a fund is different for an entry for a retail investor. So let me give kind of the, what I would do personally if I was investing 10K. I would wait until the snow had melted, and I knew that the rigs were mobilizing, and I was comfortable that they were going to, do real work and potentially make a discovery or continue to drill out a discovery. Probably wait for that, that news flow, wait for that catalyst. All three of them certainly fit into that category, right? Yeah.
And then what about valuation? So obviously, like with Hercules, you're a bit more advanced. They got quite a few holes
Different
into this
stage.
thing now.
Yeah.
They got Barrick investment, right? So it's a different stage from Kingfisher. But Kingfisher, maybe because of its lower market cap, actually has more potential torque if they do drill something new. So how do you think about it from like a risk standpoint? If Hercules is 150 million market cap, but we've got a lot more to go on, and Kingfisher is a $30 million market cap, does that affect how much you might buy of the stock or something like that?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Kingfisher is certainly more risky from that perspective. So I guess one of the rules, one of the tenets of Geo Alpha is that you don't trade discoveries, right? And the good examples are, Philo, Snowline, there's countless others, Reunion Gold. So if you're look, I mean, if you're up 3 or 5x and you want to take profits, no one's probably going to criticize you for that. It's probably smart. But in the case of Hercules, it's not a trading stock. If you want to trade, buy Ivanhoe, which has just been hammered, right? If you're a copper bull and you think copper's going to go up and you want to trade, you want to hold stocks on a 1, 3, 6 month time scale, buy Ivanhoe. If you want to invest in discoveries, you might need to own the stock for 2 years, 3 years, right? And I don't think people should be trading them. I think that trading sort of mindset is a problem for these stocks because they're so illiquid. So if you think the stock is risky and you think it's overvalued, you probably shouldn't buy it, even if you think it's just going to go up on a pump. You should buy if you think they've made a discovery and you want to own it, you want to be part of the discovery and you want to hold it for 2 years, right? So, yeah, I mean, someone's going to puke their stock. They're going to take part in a raise, just strip the warrant and sell the stock, right? It's going to happen. That's just the game. But I don't think it's smart. And that goes back to this sort of concept of Geo Alpha, just investing in 3 to 5 discoveries a year.
Okay. But I mean, I guess it is a viable strategy for a small investor. Like you said, like 10K or 5K, you could buy on the start of drilling, and then if the stock pumps on anticipation, then you can take some profit. You can take some profits on that, right?
I would encourage them to do it. You know, like those 1 or 2 weeks out from drilling, or day or two out from drilling, on a risk reward, from a risk reward perspective, they're probably the best times to sell. You've got liquidity. You've got tight spreads. I mean, that's the other thing. These bloody stocks, they got 5-cent spreads on them sometimes, right? So you just can't get in. You can't get in or out. So yeah, probably it's cynical, but 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, you should be taking profits pre-drilling, pre-release.
Oh, the pre-release. Wow, that's a big statement. Yeah, because I mean, like, even if the results are good, it's often a sell in the news, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just buy the sizzle, sell the sausage, right? So I think you guys say sell the steak. So yeah,
buy the sizzle, sell the steak.
Buy the sizzle, sell the steak. So we say sausage in Oz. So once the news is out there, people go, well, there's no more news coming. There's no more catalyst. You see this quite often when people put out the resource. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to be part of the Lassonde curve trough, so I'm just going to get out, even if the resource is kind of looking okay. Yeah, don't know. There's no golden rules, is there?
No, it's true. It's true. But you're right. The sell the news tendency is strong in junior mining. Final one, Tom. This has been good. We've gone a long time. Let's talk about Pampa Metals, PM on the CSE. This one's in Latin America. I think it's run by an Aussie, but they're focused on Argentina and Colombia. And it's an interesting one because I bought this one and then I actually turned around and sold it because I wasn't clear on what their plans are. There were some other things that were a little odd. They were doing a financing with assays pending and stuff like that, and then they acquired a new project. It's just there's a lot of moving parts here. So what's your take on Pampa?
Yeah, look, I kind of understand it, you know, a bit more deeply because we did invest in it. So Piuquenes was, for me, less interesting until the IR guy, Twitter famous now IR guy, Jordan Webster, Geologo Trader on Twitter. He took me through it. Piuquenes is super interesting on its own. I mean, the fact that it's so close to Aldebaran's Altar, is just a bit of neurology, makes it, you know, a bit safer. It's a breccia, it's a pipe. So these breccia pipes can put out sexy headlines, but then disappoint on the tonnage. Piuquenes Central probably has that, but it probably has that sort of base of tonnage there. Let's call it 80 million tons, something like 100 million tons at good grades. At basically at surface as well. It's not as deep as Aldebaran. So it's a breccia off the edge of the main Altar system. They put out 2 holes. There's no drill hole collar names on it, but I think that, you know, they put out 2 holes in this sort of area east of Piuquenes Central recently that people probably saw as a little disappointing. That's fine, but what's interesting is Piuquenes East. These 2 holes are pending. This is getting very close to Altar North, as they call it, where Aldebaran probably drilled way back in the days when Sibanye had the project, 104 meters at 0.8. So you can imagine how compelling, if a drill hit there lines up with a drill hit there, then you're starting to see some scale potential. Now, the way management, I was talking to Tony Manini, one of the major shareholders, and Joe and Jordan about it. The way they see Piuquenes is it's a 3 or 4 month drill season, super high, 4,000 meters. They want to create something that's can sustain itself. Let's call it 400 million tons at greater than 0.5%. So that's kind of bankable, buildable type scale, separate from Altar. Of course, if Altar gets built, the Piuquenes ore goes into the Altar mill, but in like year 50, right? So the project lives and dies based on if Aldebaran or whoever buys Aldebaran, probably Rio, if they develop the project. So that's it's kind of easy one to understand. Neurology essentially, maybe standalone. The blue sky is that, okay, if they can get 400 million tons at better grades than Aldi at surface, this could be the project that unlocks this part of San Juan. It's there's no projects being developed in this part, right? So we'll see. Piuquenes, interesting. It's going to be drilled. It's a true porphyry. So you heard me talking about veining and alteration. You can see that there's brecciation here. These rocks are being hammered by hydrothermal fluids, smashed, brecciated, veined, altered. Wonderful stuff. You see this is alteration here. There's white. There it is. That's the breccia pipe. It is what it is. Needs to be drilled. Now, I was interested in a junior, another company run by some elderly gentlemen that have some runs on the board. Rugby. It's run by a great character called Bryce Roxburgh. It's kind of, like he's famous in Australia, got heaps of money, made heaps of great discoveries with a group called Exeter. So they had kind of the, what do you call it? After all the various spin outs and all the projects that had been left over through these legends' careers, they still have this thing called Cobrasco. Now, why was it so difficult? Colombia. Colombia's tough. It's in a forest. There's certain hoops you have to jump through to be able to drill the thing. And now Joe, he saw the project. He said, no, I'm a lawyer. He's got a Colombian passport. He is an Aussie. He lives in Melbourne. How do you say Aussie? That was good. Yeah. He is an Aussie.
He's an Australian with a Colombian passport. Interesting.
Yeah, and lived there 12 years. So he's like, no, I understand these rules. You can drill here. If and when we delineate a discovery, that's when you start doing the environmental studies, and you go through, you follow the regulatory process, and you end up being able to mine. There's you just got to follow the regulations. It is difficult, but it's possible. That's Joe's angle. I hope I've upset him by describing it that way. So why go to all that effort? Well, this thing's worth creating a sort of 20-25 million market cap. You got Piuquenes as a backstop. It's an interesting project on its own. It's kind of been languishing on the CSE. They're upgrading to the TSX-V. That should improve liquidity. That should improve people that invest, like the bulk of the world, using interactive brokers outside of Canada or the US. They can then buy the stock, and then you don't have that problem of only being able to drill for 4 months, 3 or 4 months. You could basically drill, you can see it's just north of the equator there. So you can basically drill year round. You need choppers. It's expensive. Why it's worth it, it kind of shows up on this slide. 808 meters at 0.4, 754 meters at 0.46. With molly credits and high grade zones. Hole 3, frustratingly, terminated in a highly altered zone, probably a structure. I can't remember. I actually can't recall how many years ago. Quite a few years ago now. Terminated in a bit of soft rock, and they never got to go back to it. So they haven't followed this intercept up. Cobrasco North, it's this little letterbox stamped license. I think that's 6 kilometers across. So there's enough room for development there. On the southern boundary, Rio Tinto is drilling with a private co called MCC on Cometer. The rigs are turning there now, proving that you can drill in Colombia. And then Bryce and the boys picked up, this is a legacy. I think they had this middle bit at some point in the past as well. So these 2 legacy licenses, north and south. So the whole system from end to end is sort of 6 kilometers. And MCC, they're private, so you can't get a lot of information about them, but they're getting long porphyritic intercepts of 0.4, 0.5 as well. Rio Tinto are supporting the project. They're funding it. They're going to keep on drilling. Can't buy it because it's private. You can buy it aftermarket if you ring the CEO up. But yeah, so if you want exposure to the Cobrasco Cometer, it's one system, even though they have different names, you need to buy Pampa. And it's a super high risk, but super compelling discovery. There's very little geological technical risk. All the risk is sort of country management. Now, I think Joe's the guy to be able to unlock the project. Yeah. There's a wonderful core here as well. Here it is. This is true porphyry.
Yeah, that's some porphyry porn right there. That's
Wonderful
good looking
stuff.
rocket. That's good looking stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Cobrasco, yes. This is one of those projects where if they can get the drills there turning, stock is going to be worth a lot more. So yeah, you're right. It's just the regulatory risk, the Colombia risk, the wild card, that is the country risk. But we've seen some companies be able to make progress there in the last few years. Libero Copper has a porphyry in the southern part of Colombia, and people were saying 2021 they're never going to be able to drill it, and they did. It took a while. It took some work in the community, and yeah, but they did it the right way, and the drill is turning there. So it's possible. So
I'm not sure what part of the world of Colombia they're in. The forest
southern part.
really southern part. So if you're in a forest, it is a little more difficult. But then other parts of Colombia are super unsafe. But Ari Sussman Collective, they're able to operate there as well. So good teams can get it done.
Yeah, good teams can get it done. So good luck to Pampa on the Cobrasco porphyry project. That's an interesting one, and thanks for enlightening us on that, Tom, because that'll be one to watch. And I think we pretty much know what the catalysts are going to be. So we just have to watch for those catalysts to emerge.
Yeah, they're gonna do that TSX-V thing, and then they're gonna go ASX as well. So there's going to be there's good short-term catalysts there. But
and that I think that's a conversation for our next meeting. I want to pick your brain about Australia, because it's something that I don't follow closely. The way the Aussies do things is a little different than we do in Canada or the US. But it's an important country. It's an important mining country. And I've had people tell me about the virtues of being on the ASX, and how things are a little better for some companies. I guess it all depends upon what kind of story you have, if it's better or worse to be on the ASX or the TSX-V.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a long chat, so we probably shouldn't dive into it. But there are key differences, mainly around liquidity, the funds that are based in Australia. But although they don't understand South America very well, so let's see.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. This was a great conversation. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Rob. A lot of fun.